Hello, welcome back to Chatting Books with me. I have yet another week of something different for you guys just because our visitors are still here. We are so spoiled getting 2 weeks with them. So I am once again not prioritizing the reading, not reviewing my weekend books, but I wanted to share something bookish with you. So I'm gonna share 4 titles today with you, and their connection and relevance is that they are books that I have reviewed on Goodreads that have gotten the most likes. Now, I don't have a lot of friends on Goodreads, and it's not like people are out there liking up all my reviews, but some of my reviews catch some people's attention, and so I'm gonna share my top 4 liked reviews. So get ready for that, and we'll dig into them. We're starting at the bottom of this pile with book number 4, and that is Ariadne, which is a retelling of a Greek myth, trying to give more attention and more spotlight to Ariadne, the princess of Crete. Now, the mythology that she is involved in has to do with Theseus and the Minotaur, if that is ringing any bells. So Ariadne lives on Crete. Her father has this Minotaur in the labyrinth underneath their palace, and no one survives the Minotaur. I mean, you're not just going down to hang out with the Minotaur, or it's not like people are every day being like, hey, give me the chance to fight the Minotaur. It's not a thing. It's a punishment, of course. But Theseus comes along and he's got this plan to defeat the Minotaur. There's a love story between Ariadne and Theseus, and you get to see, does that love play out favorably for her? Spoiler, it doesn't. And what happens then when she is abandoned by Theseus? What's her story gonna turn into then? What's she gonna do with her life? I didn't like this one. And let me share my review with you. And 4 people like this review. Just not a terrible amount of people, but it is number 4 for most liked reviews, and this is what I had to say. Let me be the first to say that Ariadne was daft as hell. My goodness gracious, I can't believe she was painted to be such a foolish and naive girl in what attempted to be a feminist take on this old myth. I thought maybe the chapters from Phaedra's perspective, that's her sister, would redeem this story a little, but no. I skimmed the last 50 pages because I just wanted to get out of this narrative that was neither fulfilling nor satisfying for anyone involved. Sometimes I thought the writing/exposition was poignant or pleasant, but that wasn't enough for me here. There you have it. I did not like this one. Some people have. This author also has another mythical retelling. I haven't read that one because I just didn't enjoy my time with this one. Maybe I'm missing out on something. If you have read her other one, which I will put here, let me know if I am missing out and I should check it out, because I'm all about giving authors second chances. So we can see, maybe she redeems herself with her second work. So technically, next up is a tie between Bloodmarked, which is the second book in a trilogy by Tracy Deonn, and it is tied with Alexandria, which just so happens to be, if you caught my video from last week, a book that I talked about and recommended in that video, so I won't be talking about that again, but I will be talking about Bloodmarked, which I will have you know, this young adult fantasy contemporary story has a lot of people hooked. A lot of people enjoy it. And I'll tell you this, I enjoyed the first one. The second one though, wasn't for me. And so I haven't picked up the third one, and I haven't finished this trilogy. And what we have in this story is a young woman named Bree. She's technically still in high school, but she has taken classes and enrolled in classes at the local university. I want to say it is the University of North Carolina, so she lives near there. And while she is there, she starts to learn some stuff about this like secret society that exists in the world, protecting the world. And this order, this society, everyone in it is like descended from King Arthur and his knights. And Bree learns that in some ways she belongs to that society in a very significant way. That sounds intriguing, right? And the first book was pretty good. But the sequel just didn't do it for me. And what I had to say in my review is that there were intriguing elements and characters to enjoy, and I think it's compelling to watch Bree traverse the duality of her heritage. In some ways, it just felt too drawn out, or like the urgency was misdirected to something where the stakes weren't as high as some of the other literally life-threatening things. I got to the end and wasn't satisfied. Also, it's a love triangle. Run. And that review got 7 likes. Probably also people who just do not like love triangles. That is my least favorite trope ever. Ever. I hate love triangles. They just seem not great, understandably, but also like, why would you choose that to be the trope you're writing? Why? So when I mentioned like that there were some elements of the story where the stakes seemed way too high for what was actually on the line compared to the life-threatening things, that's that romance stuff that I was like, this cannot take priority. There are literal life and death things impacting Bree's whole existence and the existence of this King Arthur society thing and the world. We cannot be focused on the love triangle. Anyway, I am a little curious about how this trilogy ends, but probably not likely to pick up that last book. So if you think I should, if you think it, climbs back up from the sequel, do let me know, because, maybe it is worth the read. Maybe it's worth it to see how all the threads tie up, because there were some really interesting things going on in this story. The romance is what was really killing it, though, for me. Now this next one is a historical fiction set during the era of American slavery, and that is Yellow Wife, which tells the story of Phoebe, who is born on a plantation in Virginia. She's promised her freedom when she comes of age, but then through circumstances and promises rescinded, she is not given that freedom and instead is just like propelled further into the vicious world of slavery. She comes to live at a different plantation that is just awful, becomes the mistress, unwillingly of course, to a really, really awful man who jails slaves, and he's just not a good guy, to put it mildly. And she just lives a rough life, as you can imagine. And the review, I apologize, is a little bit long, but this is what I had to say about it. So my rating has less to do with the content and more to do with the presentation and craftsmanship. This book did not shy away from the gruesome realities of slavery, which was necessary. However, everything was told in a way that was like a long train of, and this happened, and then this, and then this, and this, and this. Events happening without the magic of story connecting them. The time within the narrative passed too quickly. At the end of one chapter, we were with Phoebe in her sewing shed, grappling with something incredibly heavy that I felt should have been processed more, only to start the next chapter and discover 4 months had passed with nothing to latch onto aside from knowing that a traumatizing thing had happened. Every character was full of cliche things to say and do, and it felt like they were just plugged into the narrative equation because the things that took place needed to be noticed and someone simply had to be around as a character living through it, but without any real depth. Phoebe remained static. This shallowness of action and emotion was everywhere, and in particular, it bothered me how it was written in the snippets of Phoebe giving birth. I don't need pages and pages of agonizing labor. But in this story, how it was presented was that Phoebe's water would break and then 2 minutes later she'd pop out a kid. Every time. Which didn't make sense when at the very beginning of the book, there was another character who spent 2 friggin' days in labor. That came across to me as the author deciding they didn't want to spend time on Phoebe giving birth, felt they needed to include it for whatever reason, and slapped a couple of lazy sentences in. This story deserves to be fleshed out, and I don't understand why it wasn't given space to. I feel like that's quite thorough in things that I didn't like about it. And this review was liked by 22 people, so there were things that apparently resonated with some other folks. Now, in the review of this one, or the synopsis, I should say, people were comparing it to 12 Years a Slave. Now, I have read that one, and if this kind of story is of interest to you, I think that one is done better. So maybe I would go ahead and recommend that one and pass on this one. So, getting to our final one at the top of the list is a book called Shark Heart. Now this is, I guess the best way to sum up this story is that it is contemporary romance, but also kooky and strange. The whole premise is that there are 2 people who are in love, and the man in the equation starts to turn into a great white shark. And that is not a metaphor. That is not some sort of like imagery or whatever. He literally starts to turn into a shark. The world in this story has some explanations and some like normalization about like how, yeah, sometimes people, for whatever reason, start to morph into other animals. And so then it turns into this whole like, how do you love someone through their metamorphosis into a shark? And then what do you do when your partner is fully a shark and it's no longer a human relationship? Like where does your love go? What happens to the relationship? Like what do you do? Goofy, huh? Now, I can be on board with stories like this, with fun concepts, out of the box concepts. I came across this story. It was with my mom. We were in the car, we had just left some library book sale, and we had gotten a copy of a literary little magazine thing. It's called Pages, and they have, you know, reviews and stuff for upcoming books. That way you can kind of scope out like, oh, what's going to be published soon? Am I interested in that? And this book, a little bit before it was published, this was in the publication, Pages, and I was going through while my mom was driving, I was reading to her like the different titles about like, hey, this is coming on this, and I read to her the synopsis of this one, and she's like, you're joking, like who's gonna read that? That sounds so bad. But I was like, I will read it because it sounds kind of fun, and I will let you know how it is. So let me share my review with you that 56 other people enjoy and like, and something in it resonates with them too. This is what I had to say. I knew going into this that it'd be a story requiring readers to do a considerable amount of suspending their disbelief, but it's not the premise of this guy transforming into a great white shark that's getting to me. This book wants to be unique, with a capital U. However, it comes across as trying too hard to be so. This book seems to be a story for those people who ask their partners, would you still love me if I was a worm? And then expect to get a serious answer in response. And there are 3 comments included in this. Someone named Amanda said this is the most accurate statement, awful. Someone named Lauren said, haha, this was exactly my thoughts. And someone named Allie just posted 3 of the hand clapping emojis. I think that really says it all. Thank you for tuning in for another abnormal week of content. Next week, I will get back on it with reviewing whatever I get into during this upcoming week. So I will catch you then.